That is how it all began over 24 years ago for Doctor Who. And my very special guest tonight is an Emmy Award-winning director, Waris Hussein, who not many years ago directed the very first episode, in fact the pilot for Doctor Who, which since Star Trek has a show had such a cult following and lasted for 25 years. Waris Hussein, welcome to Sinister Image.
Thank you.
I've known this gentleman for many years, and this is a surprise to me because I wasn't aware that you had done this all.
Well, it's been a long and very carefully kept secret, David. Now you've let the cat out of the bag, I can confess to it.
Okay, well,
yes.
For our audience, I guess I should mention that if you've never seen Doctor Who, and I find that almost impossible since anyone that's interested in fantasy and science fiction is well aware of the 5 Doctors that we've had, but this was a story of a travels through time and space, Time Lord from the planet. Do you remember this planet, the planet this was supposed to be from?
No, I don't actually. I can't even remember. I mean, it's so long ago, David, that this is having to recall a lot. I can't remember the name of the planet that the original Doctor came from, but he was a time traveler. This we do know.
Well, now this is called a TARDIS, and this was apparently the vehicle in which the good
Yes.
Doctor traveled back and forth in time.
Mm-hmm.
So in our own TARDIS, let's go back to the autumn of 1963, and let's talk about the pilot known as The Unearthly Child. But before that, let's talk a little bit about your background. How did you come to be asked to do this pilot?
Well, I was a very junior director at that time at the BBC. I was under contract to them, and my only experience in television had been live shows on tape and live. They used to air. It was soap operas, and so I did a twice-weekly soap opera about a women's magazine. And I don't quite know how that tied up with anything to do with science fiction, except that probably they didn't want anybody too good on that. I think I was probably the least experienced person qualified to do this show. And they got a wonderful lady in to produce it called Verity Lambert. And the two of us were like babes in the wood. We were sort of thrown into this idea of doing a science fiction series for children. And we were going to replace the children's programming at that time with this series. And of course, as newcomers, we were given very short shrift by the established children's producers at the time. And I think this show was given 6 weeks of life as a possibility. And we were given the oldest equipment, the oldest studio, the most antique set of designers. Anything that was a sort of shoved away into the corners was second-hand, was brought in, and we weren't second-hand, we were the new kids on the block. And
well, when you first got the script, what did you think of the general concept of Doctor Who?
Well, the original concept was terrific. I mean, the idea of a man traveling through time and space. Now, you must remember, this was way before Star Wars and anything that hit the screens here. You had your Star Trek, but in England we had nothing like this, so it was very important as a breakthrough, and we all loved the idea of this eccentric old man coming out of an old police box which looks like this outside,
yes,
and then you go in and it's this huge spaceship. I mean, the whole thing was a wonderful idea. I mean, fantasy. Unfortunately, the first scripts dealt with the cavemen and I had to cast actors and ask the men if they were hairy, and I mean, it was very embarrassing. It was nothing to do with acting at all.
And
then you had to find good actors to actually articulate grunts, and this again was ahead of its time, because when you think about it, movies like A Million Years BC with Raquel Welch came
Quest for Fire.
Indeed, all those things came after, you see. So